Life is about making the most of opportunities, never taking them for granted. Especially true is making good on second chances, maximising a new lease on life when it's given to you. Such was the story of Robert Huffman, who at age 22 in 1987 was sentenced to 5 years in prison for armed robbery. The Houston native was released on parole after little more than a year and a half, receiving an opportunity to start over again, to begin life anew. In his newfound freedom, Huffman was steered towards professional wrestling, and the rest, as the old saying goes, is history. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com, and this is the captivating career of Booker T.
Can you dig it, sucker?
While working at a storage facility in Houston, Huffman's older brother Lash suggested they check out a local wrestling school that had recently been opened by legendary WWE strongman Ivan Putski. The younger Huffman's boss at the storage business footed the bill for his tuition, and the brothers trained under veteran grappler Scott Casey. After a mere 8 weeks of training, Huffman took to the ring for the first time for Putski's local program, wrestling as G.I. Bro, an all-American soldier not unlike Sergeant Slaughter before him. Throughout the Texas Indies, Huffman teamed with brother Lash, who used the name Jive Soul Bro, perhaps inspired by Slick's legendary theme music. In '92, the brothers Huffman were recruited to the nationally televised Global Wrestling Federation by longtime wrestling manager Skandor Akbar. Together, they began calling themselves Booker T and Stevie Ray under the collective name of the Ebony Experience. That July, the duo defeated the Goodfellows of Gary Young and Stephen Dane to become GWF World Tag Team Champions. During their time with the promotion, Stevie Ray also won the company's heavyweight title, but the big time would soon beckon the duo. Sid Vicious convinced Booker and Stevie to join him in WCW in '93, and the Ebony Experience soon made tracks for Atlanta, Georgia. It was in WCW that the two officially became known as Harlem Heat, but their individual names were modified as well, as Booker became known as Cole with a K, and Stevie became Kane, making Booker T the first future world champion from Houston to have a towering brother named Kane. If you can't think of who the other one is, then, you probably don't know wrestling that well. The duo were originally heels, managed by Colonel Robert Parker, and it didn't take long for them to get elevated into a prolific storyline. Booker had the honor of being present when poor Fred Upman tripped and fell through the wall on the set of A Flair for the Gold, the Shockmaster incident, and Booker can be heard very softly muttering an F-bomb seconds after the botch. Alongside his brother, as well as Sid and WCW champion Vader, the quartet battled Shockmaster, Sting, Davey Boy Smith, and Dustin Rhodes in War Games at Fall Brawl '93, which ended when Booker submitted to a sustained bear hug from the powerful Shockmaster. Success was hard to come by for the duo for quite some time, losing in a 6-man tag at Halloween Havoc the next month and finishing out '93 without any real momentum. However, they did defeat the tandem of Thunder and Lightning at Super Brawl in February '94. Later that year, Sensational Sherry, renamed as Sister Sherry, replaced Parker as their manager, and that is when the success started rolling in. Around the time Sherry began managing them, the brothers reverted back to Booker T and Stevie Ray. On December 8, '94, at tapings for WCW Saturday Night, Harlem Heat defeated the Patriot and Marcus Bagwell, Stars and Stripes, to become WCW World Tag Team Champions for the first time. They defeated Patriot and Bagwell in a rematch at January '95's Clash of the Champions before entering into a feud with the Nasty Boys over the next several pay-per-views. The Nasties won the titles at Slamboree in May, but the Heat regained their belts shortly afterwards on an episode of WCW Worldwide. 2 years after the fact, Harlem Heat was literally every other champion, dropping the belts to somebody and then regaining them sometime after. Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck, the American Males, Sting and Lex Luger, the Steiner Brothers, and Public Enemy all captured the gold from the Harlem Heat, only to drop the belts back to them, giving Booker and Stevie 7 tag title reigns by the fall of '96. During this time, the more athletic Booker started to show what he could do away from Stevie. Whether it was battling Junji Hirata at the WCW New Japan Joint Show in '95, or teaming with Sting to face the Road Warriors in a street fight at Uncensored '96. After losing the belts to the Outsiders at Halloween Havoc '96, Booker and Stevie moved on to feuds with other duos like the Amazing French Canadians and the Faces of Fear. At Spring Stampede in April '97, Booker entered Wrestling Law Forever with a notable verbal gaffe during a backstage promo, an eternal cornerstone of Botchamania. Thanks for that one, Matthew. Sherry soon left their side and was replaced by Jacqueline, who didn't really last very long in the role. And soon Stevie Ray was sidelined with an ankle injury, leaving Booker the space to become a more steady singles wrestler. TV matches matches with Lex Luger, Kurt Hennig, and Randy Savage led to Booker defeating Disco Inferno to win the TV title on the final Nitro of 1997. In the early months of 98, Booker was involved in 2 feuds over the title against Flock member Perry Saturn and with Rick Martel, who made an unexpected return to prominence at the age of 41. Booker defeated both men in a 2-part gauntlet match at Super Brawl 8 to regain the belt he'd lost to the former model. Over the ensuing months, Booker retained the title in pay-per-view bouts against Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, before trading the title with Benoit at live events over 4 consecutive nights in late April and early May 1998. After that run, Booker dropped the gold on WCW Nitro to Fit Finlay. He bloody loves to fight. With Harlem Heat seemingly in his past for good, Booker continued to forge his mettle as a singles star. He defeated Benoit in a best-of-7 series to earn a TV title match with Finlay, winning both the rubber match and the title bout on the same night at Great American Bash 1998. He retained the gold via DQ over Bret Hart at Bash at the Beach the following month before taking time off due to injury. Stevie Ray actually defended the title on his brother's behalf using power of attorney and lost the gold to Chris Jericho the following month. Booker returned to action that November, defeating Scott Hall by DQ on an episode of Monday Nitro. Booker went on a consistent winning run that included victories over Jericho, Finlay, and Disco Inferno, as well as a clean victory over Bret Hart on the February 22nd episode of Nitro in Sacramento. At Uncensored the following month, Booker defeated Scott Steiner to regain the TV title, which he held for 2 months before dropping it to Scott's brother Rick at Slamboree. While TV champion, Booker lost to Scott Steiner in a tournament final to crown a new US champion at Spring Stampede. In August, Booker officially reformed Harlem Heat with brother Stevie Ray, who had been associated with the New World Order in some form for the prior year. At Road Wild that month, the two won their first WCW World Tag Team titles in nearly 3 years, defeating Jersey Triad members Bam Bam Bigelow and Chris Kanyon. Their reign ended 9 days later at the hands of Barry and Kendall Windham on Nitro, but the Harlem Heat regained them at Fall Brawl the next month. Their record-setting 10th reign came at Halloween Havoc in Las Vegas, winning a triple threat match over Conan and Billy Kidman and Brian Knobbs and Hugh Morris. The early part of 2000 represented one of the strangest parts of Booker's career, as a rift in the Harlem Heat led to Stevie turning heel and forming a new version of the team with Big T, the former Ahmed Johnson. And Booker actually lost the right to use the letter T as part of his name during this unusual angle, which saw he and Billy Kidman defeat the new Harlem Heat at Uncensored 2000. In the midst of the New Blood vs Millionaires Club angle that spring, Booker reverted to his old G.I. Bro persona for a while, working with the Misfits in action and defeating Shawn Stasiak in a boot camp match at the Great American Bash. The following month, Booker achieved his new career peak in an unadvertised match. The Jeff Jarrett vs Hulk Hogan world title match set for Bash at the Beach was clouded by a bizarre worked shoot that led to a Vince Russo tirade, and Booker was slotted in as a surprise opponent for Jarrett. On that night, Booker won to become the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. For the 4 months after, Booker exchanged the gold with Kevin Nash and, yes, Vince Russo himself, before dropping it to Scott Steiner at Mayhem 2000. By the year's end, Booker had already held the championship on 3 occasions. In March 2001, Booker achieved the WCW Triple Crown when he defeated Rick Steiner for the US title at Greed, the company's final pay-per-view before they were bought out by Vince McMahon. 8 nights later, on the final episode of Nitro, he toppled Scott Steiner to capture his 4th world title, making him the final champion in the company's genuine existence. 3 months later, Booker arrived in WWE as part of the WCW Alliance, attacking Stone Cold Steve Austin in the final stages of the main event of King of the Ring. After exchanging the WCW World title with Kurt Angle the next month, Booker crossed paths with The Rock and dropped his 5th WCW title to him at SummerSlam. That's right, in the end, Booker was a 5-time WCW World Champion, but you never really hear him mention it that much. After the Alliance disbanded late in 2001, Booker briefly feuded with former Alliance leader Stone Cold Steve Austin, most famously in a skit where the two brawled inside of a grocery store. His 2002 started out rather innocuously, getting quickly eliminated in the Royal Rumble despite entering 30th, and later feuding with Edge over a Japanese shampoo commercial. That unconventional issue set up Booker's first ever WrestleMania match, in which he lost to Edge in just a 6-minute bout. He was drafted to Raw in the 2002 brand extension and initially did struggle to gain traction amid a roster cut in half. But inspiration struck from an unusual source, a friendly but overly persistent Goldust, who wanted to form a partnership with the 5-time WCW champion, only to have his bizarre sales pitches and intrusions blown off by a comically disgusted Booker. Instead, Booker joined the New World Order for a pretty forgettable spell, only to be unceremoniously kicked literally kicked out, by Shawn Michaels not long after. The NWO rivalry faded very quickly, and Booker around this time began to accept Goldust as a friend and equal, and the two chased tag team gold. By the year's end, the two were Raw's tag team champions, winning in a four-way match at Armageddon. The two went their separate ways shortly after dropping the belts in early 2003, and Booker began a reascent as a singles superstar. He won a Battle Royal on a February edition of Raw, last eliminating old foe The Rock, to become #1 contender for Triple H's World Heavyweight title. But the storyline and the WrestleMania 19 loss to Helmsley left a bad taste in the mouths of many, and Booker slipped back down to the upper mid-card. A feud with Christian over the IC title occupied his summer, with Booker capturing the belt on Raw in Montreal that July before dropping it back to Christian at a live event 5 weeks later. Still struggling to find his place after that controversial loss to Triple H, Booker returned from a back injury that fall, and briefly feuded with Mark Henry, whom he was able to defeat at Armageddon. Come 2004, Booker was back in the tag team ranks, partnering with RVD to defeat Ric Flair and Batista for Raw's tag team gold in February. The following month, they retained the gold in a four-way match at WrestleMania 20 in Madison Square Garden, before losing them back to Flair and Batista on Raw a week later. Booker then crossed over to SmackDown via trade, turning heel due to his displeasure with being on what he deemed to be an inferior brand. Whereas we all know the cool kids actually prefer SmackDown. A brief feud with The Undertaker involving an attempt at using voodoo culminated in Booker losing at Judgment Day. And the remainder of Booker's year really ran the gamut as he feuded with John Cena over the US title, including a best of 5 series, and later turned face in order to challenge JBL for the WWE Championship. Unfortunately though, he was unsuccessful in his attempt, losing at Survivor Series. After winning the Interbrand pre-show Battle Royal at WrestleMania 21, Booker went on to feud with Kurt Angle, but again it was a rather regrettable story, one which saw Booker's wife Sharmell get involved, and if you know what we mean by that, you'll probably agree that it was a little bit strange. By late in the year, Booker was heel once more, reigniting his old rivalry with Chris Benoit, this time over the United States Championship. After Booker ultimately dropped the belt to Benoit, he and Sharmell ran afoul of the Boogeyman. Remember the bloody Boogeyman? What a laugh he was, and lost to him in a handicap match at WrestleMania 22. Booker was in need of a change, and a change is what we all got in May 2006 when he won the revived King of the Ring tournament by defeating Bobby Lashley in the finals. King Booker, as he then became known, spoke with faux eloquence, presiding over his SmackDown kingdom alongside Queen Sharmell and loyal subjects Finlay and William Regal. At Great American Bash that July, the King defeated Rey Mysterio to become a World Heavyweight Champion, his first top belt in 5 years. For the months ahead, Booker waged war with Batista, narrowly holding on to his title until Survivor Series when he lost it to the Animal. King Booker moved back to Raw in 2007, bringing his royal splendor with him, though it would be a very short stay. Failure to win the WWE Championship in a 5-way battle at Vengeance kicked off his Raw return, and his next order of business was to take issue with WWE's other kings, including Jerry the King Lawler and the absent King of Kings, Triple H. After losing to Triple H in the game's comeback match at SummerSlam, Booker all but disappeared from TV. In October, it was actually announced that he and wife Sharmell had left the company. But Booker wasn't done, because weeks after leaving, both he and Sharmell turned up in TNA. Booker debuted as a babyface, teaming with Sting at Genesis. He then spent months feuding with the likes of Christian Cage and Bobby Roode before turning heel in 2008, later helping to form the Main Event Mafia alongside Sting, Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, and Scott Steiner. He introduced the Legends Championship later that year and held it until March 2009, where he lost it to AJ Styles at Destination X. He and Steiner won the promotion's tag team belts that July from Beer Money and lost them in a 4-way match at Bound for Glory, and after dropping the belts, Booker would leave TNA. After working only a handful of matches in 2010 across the indies, Booker re-emerged in WWE as a surprise entrant in the 2011 Royal Rumble, and though he was quickly eliminated by CM Punk's Nexus, the response was overwhelming. Throughout the year, Booker mostly performed as a commentator, but did take occasional matches, including a rivalry with Cody Rhodes later in the year over the IC Championship. Come early 2012, Booker took part in 2 more pay-per-view bouts, that year's Royal Rumble match and a 12-man tag at WrestleMania 28. He then became SmackDown's general manager in July 2012, a role that he would maintain for close to a year. And since then, Booker has been inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame twice, once as a single star and this year as well alongside Stevie Ray as the Harlem Heat. He's also occasionally seen on WWE programming as an unpredictable, lovable and entertaining talking head. He also runs his own promotion, Reality of Wrestling, and politics are even in play as Booker has mulled a bid to run for mayor of Houston in 2019. All of this success and opportunity for a man who overcame difficulties and regrettable choices from earlier in his life. But Booker T's resilience, hard work and dedication have served to inspire millions of fans on multiple levels, and 3 decades later, all of his success evident and documented, he still continues to inspire. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic and on Facebook at facebook.com patreon.com/cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.